I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're honored to have Professor Russell Tuttle join us here today. He's renowned for his groundbreaking research in paleontology and author of the captivating book, Footprints from Fossils to Gallows. This book not only recounts his experiences with the landmark discovery of 3.66 million year old footprints in Tanzania, but also delves into the realm of forensic anthropology, highlighting the vital need for scientific rigor in criminal justice. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing this wonderful book. Professor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Those footprints you discovered are a significant milestone in understanding human evolution. Can you tell us a little bit about your time there and what left an indelible mark on you?
Well, I was in the camp after the footprints themselves had been reburied, but they had made a fiberglass cast of a huge southern section of the trail, and which was significant. There were enough footprints there to really get into how the individuals walked and trying to figure out, were they together or not? We can't solve that. What sexes the individuals were, that too is controversial. There's so many things that you cannot definitely say. Now, people do that. That's part of my problem with paleoanthropology. People get carried away and go far beyond what the data really can tell you, the factual base.
Absolutely. So, there's a lot of implied wisdom there, which may or may not be there, and implied knowledge, I guess, as well. Right. Your work transitions from studying ancient footprints to modern forensic anthropology. How did this shift come about? What challenges did you face in bridging the vast temporal gap?
Well, I had visited Cleveland, where a former student of ours, Donald Johansson, many people will know who he is, had found invaluable fossils in Ethiopia. And among them were some foot bones. And they were curved. And to me, that meant they were arboreal. I mean, at times, they didn't have to be all the time living in the trees, but they were well equipped to climb up there and get a foothold, if you will, while they foraged on whatever was in the tree. And but the footprints I found out later. So I thought when Mary Leakey invited me to help her with the footprints, that I would find that there were toe tips, not just the big toe, but the other toes had tips because of the curvature of the digits, and that was not there. So these footprints were, if you saw them on a beach in our globe now, you would know that they are human. You would think they're human. I'm not quite ready to say they were human. I mean, the feet could have developed, and probably would have if you're a biped on the ground, before the brain expanded and all that. So it's the beginnings of our walking in an erect bipedal posture and whatever, so we can see further, carry things, including children and that sort of thing.
It also makes sense, I guess, that a more primitive person would have differently shaped feet for different tasks, right?
Especially at that age.
Yeah.
That's just remarkable. And it throws everybody off, me too, in terms of what that really, really meant. Because we don't have more of that. Ethiopia is a long way from East Africa. It's 1,000 miles, I think, between the two sites. So why not have another separate one with more advanced feet in terms of the bipedal postures?
Absolutely. The case in Winnipeg involving Louise Robbins stands as a cautionary tale of the importance of thorough scientific validation in forensics. Now, in your opinion, what measures can be put in place to ensure that new forensic methods undergo rigorous testing?
Well, if you claim to have a new method, especially if they're genetic aspects to it that you can't demonstrate, you'd better be sure that you are able to test and actually have huge sample. It would take a huge sample of humanity and feet and whatever before you say, oh, that person is the only person who can have a footprint like this. And especially if it's 3.6, that's a million years old. So, but yeah, that's where we got into it. She claimed to have a new science, and it wasn't. She was a prosecution hack. So if you were a poor person and you're accused of murder and whatever, she's there. If there's anything, a shoe print, a footprint, whatever. She didn't realize that the scuff marks on the sole of a shoe are the way you walk, and that's all from how you rotate your hips and your knee, whatever. And so she claimed that it even showed that genetically, they had a certain foot thing. Insoles of shoes can tell you individual feet. I mean, anything that she could say, I have this new method and it shows that this person was there and did it. And so there were over 20 people, mostly indigent people or poor people, who were sentenced to, in some cases, death and whatever. I don't think anyone was actually executed. We got this stopped. It was over a 10-year span, but and it's a few of them are in the book, these tragic letters from prison, people, now that she had been proclaimed, a crook.
Yeah.
Can we go over it? And most of them did not. The one person, I haven't met him, Chavez, when he got off, one of them was condemned to death for three times. Finally, they caught up with the district attorneys and whatever. While she was doing this in the DuPage County situation, horrible murder, which I got in, it's in the book, but she, I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries. Yeah. You know what? I wanted to ask you, your book underscores the importance of peer review outside of the court.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is a problem. The certification proceedings of the American Association of Forensic Science, it has eight groups, subsets from specialties. I'm sure one would be genetics, for instance, DNA, but there was no anthropology one. So these two people, very famous in a way, Snow and should have the look here. Anyway, the other person, they had a credit card that they were in New Mexico or someplace because of a plane crash, and they had a credit card in case they needed to call Washington and whatever. Instead, they drank a bit of scotch and started calling anthropologists who had done courtroom physical anthropology, anthropometric, we call it, stuff. And they got enough people that overnight, practically, it was declared okay to just proceed, and the forensics people went for it. So we got this session set up. She was one of them, but they didn't test the people who they grandfathered and grandmothered in. There's no testing. I don't know what the test is. I've never wanted to be in that group of people.
Amazing. Do you think recent technological advancements, such as the rise of AI, will impact the future of forensic science?
Well, AI, can go both ways, good and bad. It's like the atomic bomb and stuff, or atomic energy, whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows? I'm sure there will be people who will try to use it for their advantage. You got the prosecution complex working in our courts. Look out. Prosecution complex. It's when usually, almost always, it's the ones who are the prosecutors. So you get a prosecutor they can persuade a jury with no physical evidence, not one shred of evidence, that this person should not be let loose on the streets and they're going to be a danger to humanity and whatever, which probably could be true in some cases.
Right.
But when you get
not in every case, and not always as the prosecutor describes. And unfortunately, I think this problem with prosecutors seeking the limelight and the headlines will continue until it becomes less of a political or not a non-political office altogether. The idea of electing a prosecutor on his or her prosecutorial record is something that's not going to bring about justice, in my opinion. What say you, sir?
No, of course. The big point, the main point is there's money in this.
Yeah.
Unbelievable amount of money to be involved in one of these situations, testimonials and whatever.
Exactly. Finally, let's just mention the title of your book one more time and have you explain it for the audience. Footprints from Fossils to Gallows. What do you mean by that, sir? It's kind of a big stretch, right?
It's basic. I wrote a bit of a memoir about my adventures through my research, both in paleoanthropology, which we've covered, and then I worked with the man who innovated biometric electromyographic studies to put fine wire electrodes in one fiber in, say, the thenar eminence, this part of your thumb. Mm-hmm. People, you can put enough wires in there and just tell people to think about the tune Yankee Doodle or something, and they can do that with those fibers in their thumb. People right off the street, practically. Amazing. No training, nothing. So there's all this control, fine control of our muscles. And of course, that's helped with prosthetics and stuff like that. So I applied it to a question of, do the big muscles in apes, hind limb, hands and stuff, are they basically for locomotion and movement, or are they, it was thought, for instance, that our big muscles, our quadriceps, our gluteus maximus, our butts and whatever, are bulky because they support us. They're very quiet when you're just standing quietly because your joints all fit in the way that line up if you have healthy joints. So it was, I wouldn't say revolutionary, but sure different. And it had adventures, of course, working with apes and so intimately, and you couldn't do it probably now anymore. Other people tried, but they did it outside the cage with electronic
exactly
the interactions. So
wonderful. Well, it is a fantastic book. It is called Footprints from Fossils to Gallows. It not only recounts the doctor's experiences with a landmark discovery, but also takes a deep dive into forensic anthropology and highlights the vital need for scientific rigor when it comes to criminal justice. Professor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.